Hello and welcome back to Catch and Cook, California. I'm Kevin, and today I get the rare pleasure and honor of being joined by my good old buddy Matt's Fisherman's Life and our new buddy Steven, true to tradition. Today we are using fish hooks carved from abalone shell, the old way with all stone tools, traditional bait, and we're gonna go foraging in the intertidal, hopefully catching fish old school style. Let's go. When I first got into archaeology, I actually did my undergrad and master's research on San Nicolas Island, what you may know of from Scott Odell's book as the Island of the Blue Dolphins. I spent a number of years excavating and then analyzing the artifacts from those excavations to help reconstruct the manufacturing sequence and associated toolkit with the manufacture of shell fish hooks on that island. And even though I've been studying these fish hooks for years, I have never once fished with them. Like I said, I did my undergrad and master's on San Nicolas Island. That's part of the southern chain of the California Channel Islands, but the northern chain and adjacent mainland coast are ethnographically part of the Chumash tribal territory. And that's important because the Chumash also made shellfish hooks identical to these. And Steven, who's going to be fishing with us, is not just a traditional technologies expert, he is also coastal Chumash Native American. So we're going to be fishing with the shellfish hooks replicated from those that I excavated and those fish hooks that his direct ancestors were making and fishing with for generations.
So let's just jump right into this. The way I make these hooks is I start with a hammer and anvil. I chip out blanks that are roughly teardrop shape using this bipolar technique. And these teardrop-shaped blanks on San Nicolas Island were perforated using a peck perforation technique and very tough island metavolcanic. This is kind of a risky operation, but if you're careful with it and you repetitively peck at the center of the blank, you can perforate it. Once the blank is peck perforated, that hole is rather jagged, and so on San Nicolas Island they would follow up with a sandstone reamer. This was hafted into driftwood using asphaltum. And this would be rotated rapidly between the palms of the craftsman, smoothing and rounding out that perforation, and rounding out and smoothing what will become the inner curvature of the fish hook. The outer edges of the fish hook are then ground away on sandstone slabs of various grits. I also use a sandstone saw, a flake tool, and I keep this wet, and this allows me to sever between what will become the shank and the point of the hook. I use the same tool to establish and groove around the knob, which is the portion of the fish hook that I lash to. Next, I use naturally occurring concrete root casts known as rhizoliths to sand and rasp the interior curvature of the fish hook. These work like rat tail files. And this is the final hook, ready for fishing. Now on the northern islands and adjacent mainland coast in Chumash territory, Monterey chert is abundant, and what we see is that craftsmen would use chert drills. A hafted chert drill makes short work of perforating these blanks. Sandstone slabs were almost certainly used to grind away at the exterior of blanks in Chumash territory as well, but one of the more unique artifact types that we find associated with fish hook production are slate files. One edge somewhat sharp like a sandstone saw, and the other edge somewhat rounded, similar to the rhizolith that you saw before, the perfect fishhook file. I use here an expedient tool of metavolcanic to groove around the shank to establish a hafting element, and that is the finished hook, a more typical Chumash style. When I got to camp, I wanted to show Matt's the process, and I was able to make a fish hook with all stone tools and this old school kit in 19 and a half minutes, my new record. Not too shabby. Steven was already getting cordage ready, so here he is stripping down dogbane. Now this is what dogbane looks like in the wild, and one of the cool things about this plant is it's very much sustainable if you harvest it the right way. Here you can see that each live stalk has a dead stalk right alongside, and these dead stalks have incredible bast fibers that can be easily removed and turned into cordage. And that is what Steven is doing right here. We use an overhand twining method for this. Let me show you close up. I twist the fibers until they start to bind up on themselves, and then I switch my grip. I'm keeping tension on both sides I'm twisting the same direction, and this causes the cordage to bind up on itself. In this way, I can make all kinds of leaders for my fish hooks. I wanted to show Mats a whole bunch of ethnographic material about shellfish hooks as well as archaeological examples, so I busted out some of my favorite books, as well as this high-low rig that I made based on ethnographic accounts, with the exception that I used cattail for the main cordage. Now, I didn't show you how to make this cattail cordage, but here's some footage from an old video where we made a tule canoe with all stone tools. I promise if you go back to that video, there was a lot of cattail cordage. Anyway, back to the video at hand.
Just gonna take this edge and rough it up. This is Georgetown flint. Gonna get a nice solid sawing edge right here. That's all I need.
Steven's retouched flake tool here made very quick work of the willow that he was felling and whittling down. We needed a few of these to make some poke poles. These are somewhat loosely based on ethnohistoric records. Here I'm using a simple flake tool to kind of groove and snap a small portion of the end of this poke pole, and this is going to allow me a spot where I can then lash my line nice and tight to the end. I'm grooving all the way around here so that I've got a spot where my cordage can sit and hopefully not roll around or move around too much. And here I am trying to establish about how long I want this. Pretty short line, and that way I can get back in some caves and cracks and things like that. We were all just kind of experimenting with different knots to lash it in place.
Are you giving it like an inch?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a really short leader on this one. That's like the way that I find for normal poke pulling. Works really well because it lets me get in those caves. But that ethnographic account, it just says long pull, short line. It doesn't really say how short, so we'll see if it works well for shellfish hooks, I guess.
Here, Steven's using a bit of a modern tool, a camp stove, to melt an ancient glue. This is asphaltum, naturally occurring petroleum tar that's washed up on the beaches for thousands of years and has been used as glue for generations. Here, Steven explains that if you wet your fingers, you can mold it without burning yourself. So we all got a bit of this asphaltum and started using it on our hooks as well as our lashing. Eventually, Mats decided to get a fire going, and we started melting asphaltum in the fire as well. This stuff is incredible. It's like paleo hot melt glue. Now that we're all geared up and ready to rock, it's time to turn in, because we have a 5:30 a.m. wake up call.
Ooh. Not going that way. It's like a 15-foot drop. Got a long walk ahead of us. All right, Steven and I are gonna crack some mussels. We're gonna look for the mantle. That's that nice, thick, almost worm-looking like piece on there. We're gonna try and put those on these hooks and then go start looking for some caves. Got a nice minus 1.5 low tide. We got up before sunrise. Now the question is, can we make it happen? We get some dog mane to kind of reinforce it, but that's already on there. So you got sand crab on there?
Yeah, soft shell. This thing's gonna stay on there. Got a good scent. If not, I'll switch to a mussel. Throw some dog bait on there. Yeah, but I think swinging around, I'll be able to get one.
I should have grabbed one. That looks like that's totally gonna work. Got Matt's already heading off over here. Steven down there walking into the fog. And I'm still back here tying on my bait like an amateur. A lot of this is just, you know, strictly experimental here. Anyway, there it is. Short line, long stick. Let's go see if it works. We're gonna try right on the back of this rock and see what we can do. Wow, this is the lowest I've ever seen this. Normally, this hole is underwater. That's crazy. This hole's still underwater. Oh, I had an eel. You had a hit?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I had an eel. Good, good. Let's crack some more bait. This is beautiful. All right, that's what I'm talking about, guys. All right, Steven, we got some bait here. Let go, dude. Let go, lady.
Well, based on all the action we had right off the bat, I think all of us were expecting this bite to be on fire, but it pretty much turned off almost instantaneously. We tried all different types of holes and cracks and crevices, all the right places, everywhere you would think there should be a fish, and while we got a few nibbles here and there, we just could not get a hook set. So you can see Steven in the background walking off, and me following. Tried all different types of reef, and some of this habitat looks absolutely exceptional, but for whatever reason on this day the fish just didn't seem to be biting. We definitely had no shortage of crab though, and yeah, we just kept letting them go because again, you can't keep them on a hook and line. But as much as we tried, we weren't finding them, so we went back to the same holes that we started in, and that's when the bites started to change.
I got him out of the hole, but then I lost him. I think it was too small, so it was just biting onto the bait. Couldn't fit the hook in its mouth.
Well, I did end up catching one crab. I didn't get it on film, but tossed him in my net. Later, gauged him. He was definitely legal, so I kept him. And that's when I decided to switch. The tide was coming in, so I wanted to use my paleo high-low rig. So I got out some dogbane magic string, lashed it on, checked my hook, and went fishing.
Let's give it a shot. That was a nice bite. That was a nice bite. Oh man! Hey, Mats! That was crazy, man. That was a nice little striped perch too. Almost got him. Almost got him. Maybe if I lay it out a little bit lower, like that. Got him! Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo! Yeah! Woo! Yeah! Oh my gosh, dude, that's the coolest thing ever! Woo! Dude, he's totally hooked. Right through the mouth, man. Look at that. Perfect hook set right there.
Actually through its mouth. Wow, that's amazing, man. Wow.
I am so stoked.
Look at that, that's crazy.
There you go, small hook for a perch. Oh, and off he comes. That is so awesome.
Let him eat it. Popped right through the skin.
Yeah?
Crazy.
You gotta try the high-low, man. It's crazy.
That's a striped perch?
Striped perch, yeah.
Well, the swell was moving around and the tide was coming in quick. Steven got some bites, but no dice in the end.
Man, I started studying shellfish hooks in 2006. This is the first time I've ever fished with them and caught a fish.
Still smoldering.
Dude, you put in some work on that one, brother.
Yeah.
That's a good skill to have, for sure. Nicely done.
Bro, that was awesome, man.
I was like, I gotta do it. I didn't catch a fish. I gotta, I gotta at least make the fire. All I need is a little piece of sandstone to sharpen this deer antler up. And then I'm just going along the edge here and I'm giving it a fresh edge because of all the work I've done to this knife. It's made it dull. So I just want a nice saw-like serrated edge. When I was cutting little branches off to make our poke poles, that edge is ready to go now.
That's sharp as heck. Man, that is a solid knife. He just got that friction fire going, all traditional California indigenous style with the hand drill, which is no easy feat. Now he's made his super sharp knife. We're gonna use it to clean our fish. There it is, man.
Yeah.
Very nice.
There you go.
Blade made quick work of that job. Yep, pregnant female, pretty typical for perch this time of year in shallow. Pretty much cleaned, man.
All right.
Did your girl do that tattoo?
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah, that
she's
one
super talented.
won a award at one of the Albuquerque tattoo conventions.
That nice color. Get those claws right on the coals. Got it done, man.
You did it, Kevin.
We did it. This was a team effort, 100%. You know, it's been a dream in the making for a long time, a discussion for a long time, a tradition for a long time, and it paid off today. I think grab the skin and just kind of peel it back, and I think it should be fully cooked. You got it. You got it. Boom. Thank you, perch. Just made our day. It's a nice, delicate meat.
That's really good.
Yeah. I'll be honest, striped perch has never been the top of my list in terms of fish to eat, but I think I appreciate this fish more than any other fish I've ever caught in my life. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's flaking perfectly off the bones. Absolutely cooked all the way through, but not overcooked.
The meat looks really good too.
Yeah, nice and clean. Grab one of these mussels.
This is such a good activity for kids to do too. So many memorable moments you can make doing this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
You said one of your first ever memories was going clamming over here.
My very first memory, yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, there.
Thank you. Well, I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this video. I wanted to do sort of a solo sign off here because there's a few things that I wanted to say and I wanted to be alone to say it. First things first, always a pleasure hanging out with Matt's Fisherman's Life. If you're not familiar with his channel, definitely check him out. Great guy, super knowledgeable fisherman. Second, it was such an honor to have Steven here. Matt's and I had been talking about doing this video for a long time, and I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And I truly believe that the reason we hadn't made it till now is because we didn't know Steven until now. Along those lines, if you're interested in traditional technologies, I teach classes on this, but so does Steven. Steven also has an Instagram and a YouTube channel all about how to make stone tools and how he makes traditional ornaments from abalone shell. And he also has an Etsy where he sells, you know, that awesome stone-bladed knife he was using to clean the fish? Well, on his Etsy, he sells those stone-bladed knives. He sells personal ornamentation. So if you're interested in learning traditional technologies, by all means, reach out to Steven, reach out to me, and let's cultivate the old ways together. The last thing I wanted to say is this. As an archaeologist, I certainly hope that you enjoyed this, that you're interested in the past, that you're interested in how cultures learned and adapted to their landscapes. But there is nothing more damaging to this story than when people go out and loot or steal or dig up artifacts and take them away. So all I'm going to say is this. You folks are outdoors enthusiasts. You are going to see cultural materials at some point. You will come across cultural sites. When you do, I want you to remember this. Please give a hoot, don't loot. Leave the archaeological sites alone. Leave cultural materials where you find them. I'm saying this on behalf of the archaeological community. I can't speak for the indigenous communities of our country, but what I can say is this. Every time I work with native peoples, they say the same thing. These are the material remains left behind by their direct ancestors. These are incredibly sacred to them, so please, leave them where you find them. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're enjoying this series. I hope you want to see more because I'm going to keep them rolling. And until next time, keep the old ways alive.
All right, bust out the squid. No.
Yeah, I know. we're gonna tie some mono on here, some metal hooks, and
Yeah.
stage the whole thing.
Yeah.